The wild has a way of turning even the most epic adventures into chilling, cautionary tales. What starts as a heart-pounding quest for thrill can take a devastating turn in the blink of an eye, leaving behind unanswered questions and shattered dreams. From deadly misjudgments to nature's ruthless unpredictability, these stories expose the brutal side of adventure, the side where pushing the limits comes with an unthinkable price. These 5 haunting outdoor tragedies will make you rethink the fine line between daring exploration and a step too far into the unknown. On July 27, 2023, Muhammad Hassan, a 27-year-old porter from Pakistan, found himself in a life-or-death struggle on Karakoram 2, K2, the world's second highest and one of its deadliest peaks. K2 is infamous for its brutal weather, steep ascents, and unpredictable avalanches, challenging even the most experienced climbers. But Hassan wasn't there for adventure or glory. He was there to provide for his wife, 3 children, and elderly grandmother. He had recently joined the Layla Peak expedition as a part of the rope-fixing crew, a high-risk but essential role in any major climb. His task was to secure ropes along the ascent, making it safer for climbers following behind. That night, at around 2:30 a.m., he joined dozens of climbers navigating the bottleneck, a notorious section just below the Great Serac, where ice falls and avalanches are constant threats. Unlike the elite climbers around him, Hassan lacked proper high-altitude training and had inadequate gear. Fellow climbers and Sherpas had warned him about the dangers, but he pressed on, determined to fulfill his duty. At some point during the climb, Hassan slipped and fell, leaving him trapped upside down at over 8,000 meters, 26,000 feet above sea level. The freezing temperatures, lack of oxygen, and sheer exhaustion quickly took their toll. To make matters worse, his oxygen mask broke, leaving him barely able to breathe. His condition deteriorated rapidly, and soon he was unable to move or call for help. As the night passed, dozens of climbers continued ascending past him, some attempting to break records, others chasing personal milestones, but almost none stopping to assist. Only 2 individuals, Tenjin Sherpa and Gabriel Tarso, made an effort to help. Tenjin tried to keep Hassan conscious, but as conditions worsened and his own oxygen supply dwindled, he was forced to abandon the effort. Tarso, a cameraman, also struggled with his own breathing and had no choice but to move on. Despite Hassan still being alive for hours after his fall, no coordinated rescue effort was made. Meanwhile, climbers stepped over his motionless body, determined to reach the summit at any cost. The harsh reality of high-altitude mountaineering became painfully clear when Norwegian climber Kristin Harila, who was on a record-setting quest to summit all 14 peaks above 8,000 meters, reached the top of K2 later that day. She later claimed that her team had tried to help but found the conditions too dangerous. However, the fact that her team continued their ascent and celebrated at the summit sparked widespread criticism. Austrian mountaineer Philipp Flamig later released footage showing Hassan still alive, further fueling the outrage. Many questioned whether Hassan would have received help if he had been a Western climber instead of a local porter. German climber Wilhelm Steindl, who had turned back earlier due to unsafe conditions, condemned the lack of action and later started a fundraiser for Hassan's family, which raised over $170,000 to support his widow and children. The backlash was so severe that Layla Peak Expeditions, the company that had hired Hassan, was banned for 2 years due to negligence. Beyond the tragedy itself, Hassan's death exposed deep flaws in the world of extreme mountaineering. While K2's conditions make rescues nearly impossible, his case raised ethical concerns about the priorities of climbers and the systemic biases faced by local porters. Porters are often the unsung heroes of high-altitude expeditions, risking their lives to enable others to achieve their dreams. Yet, they receive far less recognition, support, and protection. His story has sparked a global conversation about the moral responsibilities of climbers and the need for better safety regulations. Though K2 claimed his life, Hassan's story has left a lasting impact, serving as a call for greater humanity, accountability, and change in the dangerous world of mountaineering. It was August 9, 1989, in the Stubai Alps of Austria, and Duncan McPherson, a 23-year-old former hockey player from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, was about to embark on a solo adventure. The weather was foggy, the slopes were eerily quiet, and Duncan had one thing on his mind: trying snowboarding for the first time. Now, if there was one thing Duncan was known for, it was his fearless, tough-as-nails attitude. His nickname? McPherson. He played junior hockey for the Saskatoon Blades and was drafted 20th overall by the New York Islanders in the 1984 NHL entry draft. But fate had other plans. Injuries took their toll, and by 23, his hockey career was over. Without a college degree and unsure of his next move, he was at a crossroads. Then, out of the blue, an opportunity arrived. Ron Dixon, a Scottish businessman, invited him to coach and play for the Tayside Tigers, a minor league team. Excited for a fresh start, Duncan decided to take a European road trip before reporting for duty. He planned to visit old friends, see new places, and soak in some adventure. On August 9th, Duncan borrowed a car from his former teammate George Pitt and drove to the Stubai Alps. He checked into a hostel, eager to hit the slopes the next day. At the resort, he chatted with a worker named Walter, explaining his plans. Despite the poor weather and near-zero visibility, Duncan was determined to snowboard. That was the last time anyone saw him. When he failed to show up for his scheduled coaching meeting in Dundee on August 12th, his family and friends panicked. Austrian authorities, however, weren't too concerned. Maybe he changed his plans? Maybe he ran off? But his family knew something was wrong. 6 weeks later, his red Opel hatchback was found in the resort parking lot, untouched, with his passport and belongings still inside. No one had seen or heard from him, and the trail went cold. For years, his parents, Bob and Linda, searched relentlessly, making 9 trips to Austria, hiring private investigators and pleading for media coverage. But Duncan had vanished without a trace. Fast forward 14 years to 2003. A worker at the Stubai Glacier Resort noticed a glove sticking out of the ice on the Schaufelferner Glacier. When he pulled on it, a frozen body surfaced, completely encased in ice. It was Duncan McPherson. The glacier had preserved his remains, and his clothing and wallet confirmed his identity. But this wasn't a simple case of a snowboarder getting lost. His broken snowboard was still strapped to his back, and his body showed brutal injuries: a shattered femur, severed limbs, multiple broken bones. These weren't injuries typical of a fall. The initial theory? Duncan fell into a crevasse and succumbed to his injuries. But Canadian pathologists had another idea. A snowcat, a massive machine used to groom ski slopes, might have accidentally run him over in the fog. The damage to his body and snowboard seemed to match that scenario. But if that was the case, why was his body buried for 14 years? Had someone tried to hide what happened? As investigators dug deeper, things didn't add up. The resort had claimed they returned his snowboard years earlier, yet there it was, still attached to his back. His car sat in the parking lot for weeks, yet authorities never properly investigated it. Was this just incompetence, or was there a cover-up to protect the resort's reputation? Even glacier movement theories didn't fully explain his severe injuries. More than 30 years later, the truth remains elusive. Was it a tragic accident, or did someone cover up what really happened? Duncan's family still searches for answers, but many questions remain unanswered. Officially, it's labeled an accident, but the mystery of Duncan McPherson's disappearance lingers, a haunting reminder of how easily the truth can be buried beneath the ice. It was a Saturday afternoon in late March 2024, and Talon and Wyatt Brooks, 2 adventurous brothers from El Dorado, Northern California, were gearing up for one of their favorite outdoor traditions. At 21 and 18, they were passionate about nature and loved hiking the hills near Georgetown, searching for deer antler sheds, a hobby they enjoyed every spring. Talon, the older brother, worked with his dad painting houses and chopping firewood. He had a love for fishing and playing guitar. while Wyatt, training to be a firefighter, was a baseball enthusiast and a skilled bow hunter. Exploring the wilderness together had strengthened their bond over the years, making them a true brotherly duo of the great outdoors. But what started as a normal, peaceful day in the woods soon took a horrific turn, one they never could have prepared for. As the brothers walked along a remote dirt road, their quiet afternoon was shattered when they spotted a mountain lion creeping toward them. Knowing the risks, they followed all the safety protocols, making themselves look larger, shouting, even throwing a backpack to scare it off. But this lion was unusually aggressive. Instead of retreating, it charged straight at them, setting off a terrifying battle for survival. The lion pounced on Wyatt first, pinning him down and biting his face. He fought back with everything he had, and Talon, without hesitation, jumped in to rescue his brother, hitting the lion to get it off. Wyatt managed to break free and briefly gained the upper hand, but the lion was relentless. It shifted its focus to Talon, locking onto him and gripping his throat. Wyatt, despite his severe injuries, fought desperately to save his brother, but the mountain lion wouldn't let go. Realizing he couldn't overpower the beast alone, Wyatt, covered in blood and barely holding on, made the painful decision to run for help. Wyatt stumbled to their car, his face and neck torn apart, and called 911, his voice trembling with urgency. After making the call, he rushed back to the scene, but Talon and the lion were gone. When authorities arrived, they found Talon's lifeless body nearby. The mountain lion was still there but fled when deputies fired warning shots. Tragically, Talon did not survive. Wildlife officials later tracked down and euthanized the lion, confirming through DNA analysis that it was the same animal responsible for the attack. The Brooks family was left devastated. They had lost Talon, a kind-hearted, nature-loving soul, but they were grateful that Wyatt had survived. He was rushed to the hospital with severe facial and neck injuries, requiring reconstructive surgery. Despite the trauma, Wyatt's resilience never wavered, and he is now focused on healing and continuing his firefighter training. This tragic event has ignited debates about California's wildlife management policies, particularly Proposition 117, a 1990 law that classifies mountain lions as a specially protected species. The brothers' uncle, Malcolm Brooks, has spoken out, arguing that while protecting wildlife is important, human safety must also be considered, especially as urban expansion pushes people and predators into closer contact. Experts emphasize that fatal mountain lion attacks are extremely rare, with this being the first in California since 2004 and the first in El Dorado County since 1994. Typically, mountain lions avoid humans, but this particular 90-pound male acted unpredictably. While researchers continue to study mountain lion behavior, the Brooks family is left mourning the loss of Talon, determined to raise awareness and advocate for better safety measures. Meanwhile, Wyatt, still healing physically and emotionally, is determined to honor his brother's memory. The Brooks family, though deeply grieving, stands proud of Talon and Wyatt's bravery, cherishing the memories of their inseparable bond and love for the great outdoors. It was October 8, 2024, in the breathtaking wilderness of Yosemite National Park, California, where Harry Partington, a 22-year-old adventurer from Perth, Australia, set out for another exciting journey. A seasoned explorer with a passion for nature, Harry was the kind of guy who filled his social media with stunning landscapes and thrilling hiking tales. This trip to Yosemite was supposed to be just another notch in his adventure belt, a memory to cherish. Instead, it turned into an unspeakable tragedy. Harry was tackling the 4-mile trail, a 4.8-mile trek that climbs over 3,000 feet, boasting jaw-dropping views of El Capitan, Yosemite Falls, and Half Dome. While it's a bucket list-worthy hike, it's also no joke. Steep, rugged, and demanding every ounce of focus and stamina. That day, around 2:30 p.m., as Harry neared Union Point at about 6,300 feet above sea level, the weather took a nasty turn. Strong winds and light rain swept through the area, turning the trail into a hazard zone. Then, in a split second, the unimaginable happened. A massive tree, uprooted by the powerful gusts, came crashing down onto the trail. Harry, caught in its path, was tragically struck and fatally injured. Nearby, a German hiker was also hit. She survived, but her injuries were severe enough to require an emergency airlift to the hospital. Park rangers, paramedics, firefighters, and search and rescue teams sprang into action, helicopters slicing through the sky to manage the crisis. For visitors, the sight of whirring choppers and a swarm of emergency personnel was both shocking and heartbreaking. Kelly Kennedy Bentley, a tourist waiting for her family at the trailhead, described the tension in the air, feeling relieved that her loved ones were safe but deeply shaken by the nearby tragedy. The 4-mile trail was temporarily closed, and hikers were kept at a distance as responders worked. Witnesses recalled the chaos of the rescue effort, with at least 30 emergency personnel rushing to the scene. Sadly, Harry's tragic accident wasn't the only recent loss in Yosemite. Just weeks earlier, the body of Kirk Thomas Olson, a former park ranger, had been found near the Ostrander Lake Trail after being missing for 3 weeks. Incidents like these serve as stark reminders of how unpredictable the wilderness can be. Yosemite, despite its majestic beauty, has claimed over 1,300 lives since its establishment in 1890, with many hikers falling victim to unforeseen dangers. The Mariposa County Sheriff's Office announced plans for an autopsy to confirm Harry's exact cause of death, though the falling tree was the undisputed culprit. While falling trees, dubbed hazard trees by experts, are rare causes of fatalities, they remain an ever-present risk in forested areas, especially during storms. For Harry's family and friends, his sudden passing was devastating. Tributes poured in across social media, with loved ones remembering his adventurous spirit and boundless love for travel. Victor Mary, a close friend, reflected that Harry had traveled further than most people ever dream, and though his journey had come to an abrupt end, his legacy would live on in the hearts of everyone he touched. Harry's story is a sobering reminder that no matter how experienced or prepared we are, nature has its own unpredictable ways. His passing is a heartbreaking loss, but his passion for adventure will forever inspire those who dare to explore the world's most beautiful, yet unforgiving, landscapes. On July 18, 2023, Steve Curry, a 71-year-old retired electrician from Sunland, California, set out on what would be his final adventure in the unforgiving terrain of Death Valley National Park. Known for its scorching heat and extreme conditions, Death Valley is one of the hottest places on Earth, with temperatures frequently soaring above 100 Fahrenheit, 38 Celsius. On this particular day, the thermometer hit a brutal 121 Fahrenheit, 49 Celsius. But for Steve, the desert wasn't something to fear. It was another opportunity for adventure. An avid outdoorsman, Steve had spent years hiking, rock climbing, and mountain biking, and was no stranger to challenging terrains. He approached the desert's dangers with determination, believing that the beauty of nature was worth the effort. That morning, Steve had a conversation with a reporter from the Los Angeles Times at Zabriskie Point. He stood in the shade, casually acknowledging the intense heat but showing no signs of backing down. With sunscreen on, a sun hat shielding his face, and an unwavering resolve, Steve began his hike from Golden Canyon to Zabriskie Point, a popular trail known for its breathtaking views but also its demanding climbs. Despite the brutal heat, Steve didn't hesitate. To him, the challenge was part of the thrill. But by 3:40 p.m., tragedy struck. After completing his hike, Steve was found unresponsive near a restroom at the Golden Canyon trailhead. A fellow hiker saw him and immediately called for help. Emergency responders rushed to the scene, performing CPR and using a defibrillator in an attempt to revive him. Sadly, despite their best efforts, Steve could not be revived and was declared dead at the scene. The cause of Steve's death was linked to the extreme heat of the area, with temperatures at Furnace Creek reaching 121 degrees Fahrenheit. Experts believed the heat within the canyon itself was even more intense due to the canyon walls trapping and radiating the sun's energy. This made the already dangerous conditions even more hazardous. Steve's death was part of a larger pattern of tragic incidents that plagued national parks during the summer of 2023. Just days before, another person was found lifeless in their car in Death Valley when the air conditioning failed. A teenager in Alaska's Kenai Fjords National Park and a man in Colorado's Rocky Mountain National Park also lost their lives under similar distressing conditions. Despite his experience, Steve's determination to finish the hike without accepting offers of assistance from other hikers earlier that day ultimately led to his untimely demise. His adventurous spirit, always pushing himself to keep up with younger hikers, was part of what made him who he was. But on this day, it wasn't enough to overcome the extreme heat. At home, his wife Rayma had no idea Steve was venturing out to Death Valley that day. While she didn't share his love for hiking, she always supported his outdoor pursuits. After Steve didn't return that evening, Rayma grew worried. It wasn't until 2 days later that she received the heartbreaking news from the coroner's office. Reflecting on their nearly 30 years of marriage, Rayma described Steve as a warm, adventurous person with a deep connection to nature. She could never have imagined that his passion for the outdoors would lead to such a tragic end. Steve's passing occurred during a severe heat wave that had been gripping the southwestern United States for weeks. Death Valley's temperatures had been regularly surpassing 110 Fahrenheit, creating perilous conditions even for experienced hikers. Despite warnings from the National Park Service advising against strenuous activities during peak heat, many visitors still underestimated the dangers. Though Steve had taken some precautions, wearing sunscreen, carrying water, and dressing appropriately, the intensity of the heat proved overwhelming. When the body's core temperature exceeds 104 Fahrenheit, 40 Celsius, heat-related illness can set in rapidly, particularly in a place like Death Valley, where the environment is as hostile as it is beautiful. Steve's story is a somber reminder of nature's unpredictable power, no matter how prepared you think you are. Even a seasoned adventurer like Steve couldn't escape the desert's brutal grasp.